prepped and chatted outside.
We did a little, yeah.
Do you have a specific story you
Well,
want to tell?
I don't know if it's a story I want to tell. Maybe just about my experience as a teacher of disabled kids, but also my experience as a disabled person in Marin County. But mostly I was just talking about, I feel like we kind of started off negative. I talk about kind of things, some infrastructure things that could be improved to help our experience better. But also I kind of want to talk about having disability that's not like a bad thing. So kind of two things.
Love it. Would you mind starting with an introduction of your name and kind of your association with San Anselmo?
Okay.
And then anything you want to share about your identity, disability-wise.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Ready? Hi. My name is Gino Manieri. I am a teacher in San Anselmo, and I'm a resident of San Rafael, and I'm autistic and have ADHD and have a physical disability.
Great. So I think you mentioned, I think starting with your story, and then I'll prod in if there are questions.
I just want people to know that having a disability is not a bad thing. It just is. It's neither good or bad. It's just part of me, but not all of me. It has defined my experience as a person in this world, but it doesn't take away from my being a person in this world. The only thing that takes away from having a disability and making it negative is things in society that would make my life better if they were improved. I think one thing that I see in San Anselmo that affects me and my students is our transportation system. A lot of my students and myself have difficulty standing for a long time or while we're waiting, and there's no seats at the bus stops, most places, except for actually nowhere. There's no seats for us to sit down, and that can be really frustrating, especially when you have difficulties walking. The buses have stairs, so that's made my life difficult here. Some of them kneeling, but not all. So that can be hard to get on the buses. Another thing that affects me when I go out places is a lot of the sensory stuff, and I think that's a lot of autistic people. There's lots of like fluorescent lights and brightness and loud music, and that can prevent myself and other people like me and other autistic people, especially my students, from entering a building or a store. Something that as a teacher that I like about being autistic and having ADHD is I can really relate to my students who are also autistic, and it really helps me get to know them better or know what they're going through. But things that frustrate me in San Anselmo is there's nothing for them to do. Like before, during, and after school, there's not a lot of programs for them to go to. People are hesitant to hire us for internships in the local stores and businesses, and that makes me really sad. And I think that maybe it's just because they don't know how to work with my students, or they are scared of what they might do, or they're uncomfortable with my students. Because I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with people with disabilities, especially people who might be doing, autistic things like hand flapping or looking around or not making eye contact. And I don't know if they're worried about how, patrons of that store might feel about them if they have a disabled student working at the place. One of our internships asked us to come before they open to the public, and that kind of breaks my heart because I want my students to interact, because there's nothing wrong with who they are as people. So I'd like for them to interact with the public more. And as far as recreation opportunities, there's not a lot for them to do. There's no clubs. There's lots of clubs after school for typical kids, but there's not a lot of places that take my kids. And they want to interact with typical kids. They want to have a place to go after school. Their parents need them to have a place to go after school because they're working. But there's not a place for them to go just to have fun. One thing as they get older, it's not just jobs, but it's, becoming an adult, doing stuff that adults do, like going out with their friends or dating or just having a job. And so there's limited opportunities for them to do those things. And I think those could be improved by people's understanding or creating programs or allocating resources for them to be able to participate fully in society and just be a person and have fun.
Those are some great examples.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about your journey deciding to become a teacher and having students with autism have you as an example, a leader in their community.
Oh, yeah. So the reason why I became a teacher is because I wanted to, I mean, it's kind of cliche, but I wanted to be the teacher that I didn't have growing up. And so you don't see a lot of autistic teachers teaching autistic kids, but it's a perfect opportunity because I know exactly what they're going through. I know how people treat me. Like, I know how it is to, have sensory difficulties or sensory needs and have to exist in a world that's not set up for it. So I can teach them kind of like tricks and tips. One of my students loves this little class I teach called ADHD Life Hacks. So she always thinks it's funny when I teach them to do, simple stuff like how to cook with an air fryer or cut food with scissors instead of a knife or teach them shortcuts. So I think they appreciate me and I think they look up to me. And I always disclose to them, usually like when the first 2 weeks of becoming their teacher. And I think it helps them connect to me better. And it's nice seeing yourself in your teacher. It just makes you have a better outlook on life. And it's nice having someone with autism who, has gone so far because I can oh, wow, I can do that too. I can go to grad school. I can be a teacher. I can, help other kids like me.
Thank you for that. That was really powerful. And I think for our students, as you mentioned, to see themselves reflected in leadership in their lives is such a rare gift, sadly.
Yeah.
So.
Because they don't necessarily see autistic people in the media. It's more and more prevalent nowadays with people being able to control their story and people on YouTube and people on TikTok being able to control their story. So it's not often you see just everyday people. They see these YouTubers and they're like, that's cool, but they don't just necessarily see me working at the grocery store, working in the library, being their teacher, helping them out. So it's nice to be in that role.
And when we train, we'll be training the town.
Oh, fun.
Of San Anselmo and talking about how to be more accommodating out in, you mentioned rec, that's a perfect example of more access for our students in after school programs. Just your experience, and you mentioned the bus situation, but any other ideas of how San Anselmo can be more welcoming to the disability community?
I think just accessibility overall, accessibility within your store. And that's not just, ramps and things. It's lower lighting. It's less loud music. It's wider aisles. It's bathrooms with the doors wide enough for people with wheelchairs to fit through, or bathrooms with changing facilities for adults or, larger children. It's being welcoming and not staring if someone makes a lot of noise or is stimming with their hands or jumping up and down, sort of normalizing that and not making it a big deal or asking the family to leave. And it's sticking up for them. So if someone complains about a student being, a student or a kid or a person or anyone, being loud or, shouting or just kind of understanding so the staff would know how to interact with that. Be actually that person, might have a disability and we accommodate everyone. So kind of sticking up for the patrons of the store. Because I know people like to complain. I'm not naive to know that people like to complain about autistic people or people with disabilities in stores. I think just being understanding as a whole and thinking of everyone. When you plan events, when you plan a new store, when you plan, lights or crosswalks, just thinking about what people might need and why they're not using the facility you're building and why they wouldn't use the facility you're building. Think of ways you have to look at everything through a very different colored rose-colored glass, or not rose-colored glasses, but different colored glasses. You have to look at all angles. You maybe get in it, sit down like you would be sitting in a wheelchair and see what the store looks like from that perspective. Just so you know, where you place items, because everything from bathrooms to cash registers to things on the floor to having people offer to help you when you walk in. So it's a lot of stuff to think about, but I trust that people can do it if they just kind of use their brains and take themselves outside of who they are and their experience and try to reflect on other people's experiences.
Would there be things that these, I feel like you're mentioning stores that are or venues, restaurants that can be chaotic to enter? Was there a reality in which there would be something they could offer? Because sometimes I know that businesses maybe can't change the fact, like a busy pizzeria is just by nature loud. Like, would they, I'm just asking you because I don't know, like, would they be able to offer something like, I don't know, headphones or sunglasses?
Yeah, having those, but also having like low sensory days and inviting those people. I know a lot of grocery stores, not anywhere around here, but I've read on the internet that some grocery stores have like a low sensory day, or like Walmart's, especially in the UK, they're very good at having a low sensory day or a low sensory hour. So there's certain hours of the store where they don't play music, they turn down the lights, and then people know to expect that. So people kind of pick up on that vibe and know, like they put up really good signage so the patrons know, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be as loud today. And I think that, pizzerias or, restaurants, of course they could be loud, but I think if they had like an hour, like this is our low sensory hour, I think enough people are aware of sensory differences enough to know, like, oh, maybe I should lower my voice. Or so I think that we should trust the public a little bit more, that they can follow, they can read a room.
That's a brilliant idea. I never heard of that. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have.
She's in the community.
You probably have, but I haven't. That's very cool.
Well, I joke all the time. If everybody had my Instagram feed, they'd know of all these things, but you forget that you're pigeonholed into this disability.
Yeah, I know about it because it's my community. Yeah, and some people don't ever realize that. They don't ever think about ramps. They don't ever think about low sensory needs because they don't need it. But it's like my life. I see it every day. And yeah.
Some people could really benefit from that, just as the average person. I know sometimes I need a little peace and quiet.
Yeah, Google is free. And I say that a lot. Google is free. And you hear a lot of people with disabilities saying Google is free. And that means Google it. Like sensory friendly options for restaurants for autism, accessibility, wheelchair accessibility in bathrooms, walker accessibility in bathrooms. And accessibility helps everyone, like people with strollers. It helps, people with like toddlers. It helps everyone. Yeah, everyone can use a building with a ramp. Not everyone can use a building with stairs.
Nailed it.
Yeah, we dealt with that with our kid in the stroller. People talking about the local sidewalks being problematic, and when we were pushing the stroller around, I made calls to the town because some of them literally point you into the street.
Mm-hmm.
They do, yeah, and it's dangerous.
I was like, what is that? Anyways.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
You want to do a...
Yeah, we'll do it quick before we cut the camera off. We'll do one last kind of tighter camera introduction. It's just part of a visual theme we're doing. All you do is just introduce yourself, your name, and a brief description of who you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Gino Manieri. I am autistic and ADHD and have a physical disability, and I am a teacher for disabled students in San Anselmo.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks. Cool.
Assist.